The little cogs of your consciousness cranking away, making your life possible, making society function, all of the things that you're so glad you can do and all of the ones you wish you could stop doing. And what it means to be alive, thinking, feeling, and alive. How our brains work, how they can break, how they can be healed, how our brains work, how they can break, how they can be healed, why we behave the way we do even when we don't want to, and what it means. Admit it. We're probably thinking about, what? We're thinking about Freud. Admit it. If you're thinking about proctology of all time, of all times. Perhaps more than any other sciences. Perhaps more than any other sciences. What is wrong with me? First psychology laboratory at the University of Leipzig, just a few years after publishing his Principles of Physiological Psychology. The first time I read that, I thought it was psychological psychology. I was like, yeah, the principles of psychological psychology. Just a few years. Why are there so many commas? Sentence is 1,000,000 words long. Wundt and his student, Edward Bradford. Wundt, the more she talked and pulled up traumatic memories, the more her symptoms were reduced. In 1990, he published...
No, not in 1990.
You're probably right about that.
Let's check.
Can somebody check? Through a therapeutic technique that included and free associates to root out. Okay, got it. Okay, good. And behavior, we have already talked about behaviorism. Yes. No. Yes. No. Have we talked about behaviorism? No, we haven't. Heavy hitters like Ivan Pavlov, John B. Watson, and B.F. Skinner were key players here who focused on the study of observable behavior. This approach, called functionalism, was inspired by Charles Darwin's idea that adaptive behaviors are having excited or inhibited the receiving. For example, can weak-old pizza cause... Can we go... Shut up. So you must be qualified to be able to draw at least some conclusions about what other people think and what? Get your act together, Hank. This doesn't mean that common sense is wrong. It just means that our intuitive senses quad shot of espresso makes you think. With your espresso hypothesis will allow. The idea is to let the subjects just do their thing without trying to manipulate. Psychologists can also collect behavioral data using surveys or interviewing. Psychologists can also collect behavioral data using surveys or interviewing. My God, I will stab you in the throat if you do that again, Hank. What they think about arms control, but I can ask a room full of students at a pacifist club meeting what they think about arms control, but the results wouldn't be a very representative. Representative is the word, but the results wouldn't be a very representative. But the results wouldn't be a very representative measure of where all students stand because there's clearly a sampling bias. God, it went too slow for me that time. Stab it into the darkness until it sticks into something. Please don't make me do that again. Now, whether it's a weeping angel or your neighbor looking to borrow a can of beans, it doesn't really matter because when you heard that sudden noise, your startled brain released. Now, whether it's a weeping angel or your neighbor looking to borrow a can of beans, it doesn't really matter because Now, whether it's a weeping angel or your neighbor looking to borrow a can of beans, it doesn't really matter because when you heard that, yes, that's what it says. So one way to understand how your mind works is to look at both how, which is nothing compared to the 150-foot-long nerve cells of some dinosaurs. What? From one's less than a millimeter long in your brain to one's Just do it. Make your mouth make all of the necessary shapes. It is sometimes encased in a protective layer of are sensitive to that gamma aminobutyric acid. Secrete hormones into the bloodstream where they're ferried to other tissues, and especially the brain.
Nope.
But fat, ow!
Oh, man.
That was the nervous system, you can tell, because of how fast it was. He was a phrenologist, the first phrenologist. What was this? That its bumps and ridges indicated that. And yet, something we knew nothing about. Remember, at this point, we were just starting to get poke my brain here and my arm would twitch. Try it over here and I'd memorize. Poke my brain here and my arm would twitch. Try it over here and I'd remember my first twitch. Functions tied to the behavior. Never mind. Whereas more complex mammals, like many mammals, newest, most shift that electrode over a little bit and suddenly it's something else.
Start all over.
Oh. Shift that electrode over a tiny bit and the dog shift the electrode over just a tiny bit and that dog will be cowering. It wasn't that good. Could have been better, but I'm sick of it.
I don't think it's gonna get better.
I don't know if I like that. Is that okay for you?